Amy thinks of the American flag.
Oh, yeah. I'll call the February 1st, 2022 Lyons Board of Trustees special meeting to order. Could we have the roll call, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mayor Angelo,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning,
Present.
Trustee Lowell,
Present.
Trustee Waugh,
Present.
Trustee Caravas,
Present.
Trustee Miller,
Present.
and Trustee Rogan.
Present.
Please all rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next agenda item is our tradition of taking a reflective moment of silence. Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Are there any requests from any trustees to amend the agenda? I gotta get something out of the way here. If not, I'll call for the vote, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Angelo, Mayor Angelo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning,
Aye.
Trustee Lowell,
Aye.
Trustee Waugh,
Aye.
Trustee Caravas,
Aye.
Trustee Miller,
Yay.
and Trustee Rogan.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Next on our agenda is audience business. This is an opportunity for anybody in the audience to address the Board of Trustees on any manner other than the ordinance before us tonight. I believe, Counselor, is that correct?
So because the ordinance is on first reading, there is no public hearing on that ordinance. So if someone wants to speak to the ordinance that's on first reading tonight, they should do so now.
Okay, that's fine. Let me just try to get this done. Do you see anybody who wishes to speak to the Board of Trustees at this time, Madam Clerk?
No, sir, I don't see anyone with a hand raised.
Okay. Could you please read the next agenda item into the record?
Yes, the next agenda item is the first reading of ordinance 1118, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, amending the annexation agreement with Planet Bluegrass Farm LLC.
Staff?
Sure, and I believe Attorney Dittman, do you want to start with, oh, Trustee Miller has her hand up.
Mayor Angela, Trustee Miller has her hand raised.
I got Trustee Miller.
Just for full disclosure, I'd like to say that I have in the past worked for Planet Bluegrass, but can remain unbiased in the discussion and can uphold my oath as a trustee.
Thank you for that. Trustee Waugh?
Also like to disclose that as one of the partners in Lyons Properties, we have worked to provide camping and other services to Planet Bluegrass during their festivals. I also can remain unbiased in this specific issue.
Thank you. I assume we can continue, Counselor.
Yeah, I think pending no further disclosures, I think we can proceed on the presentation.
Okay.
I'll share my screen, Brandon, if you want to speak to some of the process to start.
Yeah, of course. So I do not see the presentation yet.
Oh, is it? Uh-oh.
Philip,
Philip, are you wanting to share your
Yeah,
cover?
I'm frozen, sorry.
What would you like to share? I'll see if I have it.
Well, Philip,
Brandon could probably do it.
I can do it. Yeah, I can do
Okay.
that. Let me pull that up real quick. Sorry.
So weather already affecting everything?
Sorry, yeah,
Good.
usually.
So Philip, you'll have to stop screen sharing in order for me to do it, or you can't because you're frozen.
Yeah, maybe, can you kick me off, Dolores? Maybe I can rejoin.
Okay. Okay, so can everyone see that?
No.
No, we're not seeing anything
Not yet.
yet.
Okay, it says I am screen sharing, so hopefully that pops up in a second.
I'm back. I could try it again.
Can you still not see it on my screen?
No, we
no,
can't see it.
Huh, that's funny. Well, I have stopped screen sharing. Try it again.
now it's saying Philip is screen sharing.
Yep.
But we're
It's
not
black.
seeing anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says
So
I'm sharing.
If you have more than one screen, you need to click on the screen you want to share.
Yeah, it's showing it. Hold up. I'm let me see, resume share. I don't know why it's doing this. Sorry.
Let me try again.
What document are you wanting to share?
It's not one that you have, Victoria. Can you see that?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Now just put it in from beginning mode up in the
Yep.
top left, and
Okay. So
there you go.
now that this is up, this is just a really short presentation we wanted to give on the process and some of the considerations for the annexation agreement specifically. Given, I think, as we all know, and I think as Philip will speak in greater detail too, that there are 5 different items up for, potential approval on the Planet Bluegrass applications. Just to keep our processes straight, just want to give a really quick presentation on what the process is for today. And so the kind of agenda for this item that we have proposed is that, first we'll give you our staff report. That's what's happening right now. Next, the applicant will give a short presentation / report on an overview of the entire application process, and then also some specifics to the annexation agreement. Then, of course, the Board of Trustees is free to ask questions of town staff and the applicant or anytime during those presentations. Then we'll have a motion in a second and a regular discussion. And the Board of Trustees, of course, has 3 options. This is just a first reading as a reminder. So we can approve for a second reading, which schedules the public hearing. It can be denied, which would kill the entire application. Or of course, we can continue to a date certain. Just remember, this is just the first reading of the ordinance on the annexation amendment to the Planet Bluegrass farm property. As I've already explained earlier today, there is no public hearing associated with this first reading, but the public will have the opportunity to comment at the second reading, of course, during that public hearing. All written correspondence has been received to date will be distributed to the BOT and included as part of the written record on that second reading. In addition, I think we've discussed this in the past, but the annexation agreement contains the site planning keynotes and also the minimal letter of understanding as attachments. Both, as we all know, that both the site plan and the keynotes in ALU have separate approval processes. And so to the extent possible, I would encourage you to keep substantive comment limited to the annexation agreement and the decision on whether to schedule a public hearing on the annexation agreement amendment. Because those other items have their own separate approval processes, it's important to the extent possible, understanding that these are all intertwined, that we really limit the substantive questions on what was done as part of those red lines on those specific approval pieces to the public hearings on those particular items. And so just as a general reminder. I also want to give a little bit of background on the purpose of the annexation agreement, since we don't do those very frequently in Lyons. And what real an annexation agreement really is just a contract between the landowner and the municipality, whereby the landowner promises to file a petition for annexation, and the municipality promises to annex that property subject to mutually acceptable terms and conditions. In most annexation agreements, and of course the one here as well, really the landowner is agreeing to provide certain public improvements necessary to serve that annexed property. This includes fees that the municipality can assess related to the impacts of annexation, including review fees. And the municipality can also require dedication of water or land related to the annexation impacts as part of the annexation agreement. And the whole thing to remember is that annexation is a voluntary process that the town can't compel. This is really as a consideration at the time this was originally signed, but the town can't compel really anyone to annex. The landowner can't compel the town to allow it to annex without conditions being attached to annexation. So it's a voluntary process that's based a large part on mutual acceptance of the conditions of annexation and the acceptance of the petition of annexation. Really any condition which is related to the annexation of the property is acceptable so long as it does relate to the annexation, or in this case, the amendment to the annexation. It has to be related to some degree to the impacts that are posed by the property. So this is a general thing to keep in mind as we talk about annexation agreements. So that's my overview of the process. I think Philip's going to speak more to the actual application and the agreement itself. And so I will stop my screen share.
Okay, thanks, Brandon. I don't have a presentation. I'll just really speak to my staff report. So Planet Bluegrass owns a property referred to as the Planet Bluegrass Farm. That was annexed into the town in 2017. That property is on the west side of 36, just north of Apple Valley Road. Planet Bluegrass has applied to for changes to the annexation agreement, which, as Brandon mentioned, also include the site plan, associated keynotes, and the ALUs, which are attached to that agreement. I'm going to start with an overview of the agreements that will need to be considered and kind of a schedule for this. This special meeting was requested today so that to process the amendment for the annexation agreement, and so that can run in parallel with amending these other controlling documents between the town and Planet Bluegrass. This includes the conditional use review process, which is quasi-judicial, and that plays a role in why we've requested the special meeting tonight, so that the second reading can be held at the same night for a public hearing. And the public hearings and the board's review will all be amended, or for all the amended documents are scheduled for Wednesday, February 9th. And so we've reviewed these agreements with the board in a workshop before, but I just wanted to cover this again to make sure everyone understands it, including the public. And keep in mind that tonight is first reading for the amendments to the annexation only. There are 5 documents that control Planet Bluegrass properties that are for both the ranch and the farm. All of the documents really fall into 3 categories: the annexation agreement, 1, 2, the amendable letter of understanding, ALUs, and 3rd, the site plan and keynotes. And the changes currently proposed by Planet Bluegrass require amendments to all of these source documents. So I will give a quick review of how all these agreements will be amended. Starting with the annexation agreement, the amendment process is not specified in the agreement, but the original approval was made by ordinance, and Colorado law generally holds that amendments would be required, or any amendments would be required by ordinance. So that leads us to this first reading tonight. And note, the ranch property does not have an annexation agreement. Next, the ALUs are a requirement of the town's commercial entertainment 1 zoning district, and they're intended to provide an understanding between the town and the applicant on the details of the entertainment that's being provided, and both the ranch and the farm have ALUs. And the amendment process for the ALUs may be approved by the board by resolution. Again, the amendments for the ALUs will be considered at the February 9th meeting. And last, the site plan and keynotes are amended through the conditional review process. An application was submitted by Planet Bluegrass and to amend the site plan and keynotes, and the process is underway. And with the first public hearing was held with PCDC on January 24th. And the Board of Trustees public hearing is noticed for February 9th for that. I'll give an overview of the proposed changes for Planet Bluegrass that include both the farm and the ranch site. The amendment for the annexation agreement is being considered for the farm only, but the changes and the agreements are so interrelated, I felt it's important for the board to have a comprehensive understanding of the proposal. And the improvements and changes are really for Planet Bluegrass for their needs for the next 10 years. So, and to summarize, they include a change in the farm's south grazing area for major event camping, relocation of a pedestrian bridge, adding a permanent vehicular bridge, additional storage facilities, addition of an ADU to the farm's south grazing area for staff housing, an increase in the number of mid-tier events to 10 at the ranch, and improvements to the ranch, and ratification of the keynotes that were established through the settlement agreement. I've provided a more detailed list in my staff that shows the changes specific to each site plan and keynotes, and the numbers are associated with those plans. In conclusion, I'm recommending the board approve the amendment to the annexation agreement for consideration and public hearing at the second reading, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? And I'm sorry, I have something in the middle of my screen, so I can't see everybody. So help me out, Clerk Vasquez, please.
Mayor Pro Tem has his hand raised, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, if someone on the staff tell me, when is it anticipated that the remaining documents that are not yet posted in our packet for this first reading would be posted and available to the Board of Trustees and the public?
Are you referring to attachments that were listed, not included, or?
I'm referring to things like the Planet Bluegrass application itself, the minutes of the PCDC meeting, public comments that have been submitted. What we have now is a limited record consisting mostly of prior documents and then red line changes to those, the documents you've described, but there are a lot of other things, comments from referral agencies, that type of thing, that are not yet before the board. We haven't seen them. And so my question was, if a meeting may be held on February the 9th, when is it anticipated that the rest of those documents would be posted and become available to the board and the public?
Sure. So that's all, my understanding is that should all be included for the public hearing, and that will be posted on Friday, I believe, for the 9th.
Presumably even quicker. I mean, everything is ready, so it can go out as soon as this first reading is approved. It could go out tomorrow potentially.
And when is it anticipated that all the documents and the packet will be posted for our regular Monday meeting?
I would post the Thursday before, sir.
So that would be Thursday, and then for the regular meeting, these would be Thursday or Friday for the potential meeting on the 9th.
On the 9th, yes. As soon as they have them ready, I can get them posted.
So the only thing I would add to that is that for the 9th, all those documents are already ready, with the exception of not all the public comments have come in yet. Those get added as they come in. And so I believe we could get that out tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, a related question is when we had a prior special meeting on this and talked about process issues, there was some discussion about in particular, the town attorney not being available during a portion of February. Weren't given exact dates. And so I anticipate when we get to that part of the meeting, making a motion to postpone the February 9th date. And I wanted, since we're asking questions at this point, I wanted to ask what dates are, in particular, the town attorney or any other key staffers like the town administrator or the town clerk perhaps unavailable, because we obviously will need the town attorney present if we, for second reading, because of the complexity of these documents.
So Mayor Pro Tem, I'll answer as to myself. I'll be gone from the 11th, coming back the 20th. And I believe the 21st is a holiday as well. So,
and then we have a regular meeting on the 22nd. And I guess related to that, for the second reading and public hearing, does that require, is there a minimum number of days of advertisement and public notice in the paper of record required for that?
It was already noticed for the 9th, so that you'll have to open that and continue it or start a new public hearing notice, correct, Dolores?
And that was my question. If we
Yes.
start a new one rather than opening and continuing on the 9th, is it 10 days?
It's usually 14 days because when we post first reading, we already know when the second reading is.
yeah, I believe only in this case, only the ordinance would require the minimum number of days ahead of time. The other items would not require.
Right, just the ordinance.
Okay, so the minimum posting time, if we wanted to reschedule the second reading and public hearing would be, we'd have to allow 14 days for notice publication before then.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all my questions for now.
Are there any further questions? Trustee Carols.
Question I have, and I guess, Brandon, you kind of answered off of what Mayor Pro Tem Browning indicated, but we'll get more information. But yeah, I need to see the PCDC minutes, what everything else they went through besides just recommendations, because I'm looking at, we was mentioned the annex agreements, and I think staff needs to look at this a little further. It talks about the water dedications and division of property subdivision. We're going to need some further explanation of definition of division of land. This land that's connected basically runs right by town utilities, and there's requirements in our code. So I think there's some bigger possible issues or just explanations we need, and I'm going to need those, and I don't see it anywhere on the UEB's notes or minutes. So I'm a little weary of if have they already turned in everything they said they're going to, or is it what the recommendation we got from the UEB, which is wait till it comes up with permitting.
So Trustee Carolis, to answer your question, the PCDC recommendations are only as to the site plan and keynotes to the site plan, which is not part of the item that's currently before the board.
Mm-hmm.
This is just the annexation agreement. Of course, all those minutes will be made available when the agenda is posted for that item, which would be tomorrow, assuming that the hearing would still be on the 9th. As to the UEB recommendation, again, that's for the site plan piece of that as well. So that would also be posted tomorrow. But I think we can tell you with certainty today that UEB's recommendation was to look at that when the building permits came in.
Did you have anything to add, Philip?
No, I was gonna say the same thing Brandon just said.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
all right. Any further questions? Counselor? This is a quasi judicial matter, is it not?
This item before us tonight is not, but as I've mentioned before, the related items, the keynotes and the site plans are. And so my advice to the board has been to treat all of it as a quasi judicial matter because they're so intertwined.
And because of that, and another issue in the town, it's becoming, I'm just going to be honest about myself. I can only speak for myself. It's becoming very frustrating to not be able to get information, in this case, very relevant information until the second reading. And I can understand timelines and things like that, but this situation is, there's a lot of information that the Board of Trustees is going to have to make a decision on at second reading, even at a special meeting dedicated to just this particular subject. I hope that we're well prepared. And I'll just leave it there. You know, like I said, these quasi-judicial limitations on being able to communicate are very, very frustrating. Are there any other further comments? Mayor Pro Tem?
I was going to do this as a comment later in connection with the motion that I intend to make to postpone the February 9th public hearing and second reading, but because Trustee Caravas asked a question and Attorney Dittman's response triggered exactly what I was going to comment on, I guess I should follow up now in the form of a question. And as Trustee Caravas mentioned, the annexation agreement, specifically in paragraph 19 of the annexation agreement, deals with water rights dedication. And it says that annexor, that's Planet Bluegrass, has requested that dedication of water rights be postponed until the earlier to occur of A, future subdivision, or B, the conceptual plan is amended. I believe that these proposed changes that are now in the record amend the conceptual plan. And so I think my reading of that provision of the annexation agreement is that water rights dedication must be taken up now, not when a building permit may be applied for sometime in the future, but now, because this is the earlier of those two things, either subdivision of the property or conceptual plan being amended. The suggestion is to amend the conceptual plan now. And in fact, as Attorney Dittman indicated earlier, oftentimes when annexation agreements are negotiated between a municipality and somebody wanted to annex, you take up water dedication provisions or land dedication provisions then at the time of annexation. That wasn't done with this property for the reason that Planet Bluegrass asked that it be postponed, and it was postponed until a certain time, either property subdivided or the conceptual plan amended. And we're now at the amendment of the conceptual plan. So the question I raise is, do we need to take up the issue of water dedications at this time before we amend the second conceptual plan? As I read that, unless we're just going to ignore that part of the agreement, that's something we've got to do in conjunction with this whole process, and that not later at the time a building permit may be requested. So that's my question. But isn't that something we need to address now? And that's what I think Trustee Caravas was asking as well.
Yeah, I interpreted Trustee Caravas's question to be what input the UEB had, and not as to this question specifically, but I would agree that if additional water needs to be dedicated, amendment of the conceptual plan would trigger that requirement.
Okay, and so I guess the follow-up question is, are we ready to get into that issue on February the 9th? I don't think the materials that we've seen so far that addresses that, but that doesn't mean it's not in some of the other materials that we haven't seen.
It'll be part of the conceptual plan amendment. It has to be, so. Which is the site plan. That this, I should refer, the terminology differs in some of these documents, but the site plan is the conceptual plan as to the farm property.
Right.
It uses that term interchangeably. So that is the quasi judicial issue. And the three amendments is the amendment to the conceptual plan.
Yeah, based on your advice, I don't propose that we get into discussing the substance of what water rights dedication issues may. We should avoid the substance of that now, but that does relate to the timing of something that the mayor suggested. If there's a lot of information, and that's something that looks like we need to get information on before we make a decision on second reading. And so I just raised that as part of the consideration relating to scheduling that I'll discuss later when I make a motion.
Are there any further questions for staff? Hearing none, I assume it's time for a motion, Counselor?
I believe so, unless there's any further. Well, actually, the applicant has the opportunity to present. Excuse me.
Oh, would the applicant wish to
Since it is
present?
their request.
Would the applicant wish to present?
Yes. Okay. Hi, thank you, Nick. I'm Rosie Dennett, planning consultant for the applicant. We're also tonight, Zach Tucker is here, the manager for Planet Bluegrass. I think, I had a little presentation ready, but I'm a little confused by all of this discussion in that staff had asked us to submit all of the information for the PCDC meeting. So we've had all of that material available to staff since before the PCDC hearing. So it feels kind of like we're getting punished now. Schedule wise, it can be a real issue for us to get put off for, sounds like with Brandon's absence following the 9th, we could get put off for quite a while. So I just wanted to express that is a concern for us. Brandon's correct. We do have, staff does have all of the materials. We believe that it is a complete application. I think just the only thing that maybe wasn't ready yet was maybe the minutes from PCDC, but everything else they should have had. Since we are just talking about the annexation agreement on the farm parcel, I just had a few comments to make, and then Zach was going to talk more about the specific improvements. And then, of course, we're both available for questions. As you know, last summer, the board did approve some modifications to Planet Bluegrass, and subsequently Riverbend asked Craig to consider not providing camping space at Riverbend for future festivals because it interferes with their wedding events. So to amend the site plans for the ranch and the farm, conditional use is required. And as Philip and Brandon have described, that involves 5 documents. I was asked to help with this application, and I advised them to include any improvements that they could envision over the next 5+ years, thinking that the town would be better off not having to do this every year, and trying to consolidate as much as possible so that it's easier for everyone to follow what's been approved. This is a very complicated property with all these various documents. Because the ranch parcel and the farm parcel are in slightly different ownerships, we do have separate site plans for each property. So we've been trying to simplify the approvals as much as possible. This proposal also furthers the goal to keep most of the activities on the Planet Bluegrass properties to minimize adverse offsite impacts. So that was also a goal that we were trying to accomplish. And guess it doesn't mean much if you haven't seen what PCDC said, but we are in agreement with the town staff's recommendations. They're recommending some conditions on the approval. So is PCDC, and we don't have any problem with those recommendations. So I guess I'll let Zach jump in and talk about some of the improvements.
Let me just interject something here,
Sure.
Counselor, and it might be what you may be getting at. That's the frustration. We cannot access staff information. We cannot access PCDC recommendations, not yet. That's the nature of this process. Counselor?
Yeah, and I will say that the PCDC recommendations are in the packet before the board tonight. It's just the minutes that are not. And the reason for that is the recommendation shows that step in the process is complete. The minutes is the evidence that was collected that can't be seen at this time, but will certainly be in the record prior to the final consideration on the site plan. So I just wanted to make that correction that the recommendations are in the board's packet, showing that portion of the application process is complete.
Mr. Tucker, sir, you have
All right. Well, thanks, Rosie. And I also want to express my thanks to the board. I know that there's been a lot of special meetings and things, and we appreciate everyone working with us to try to keep our timelines intact. We've got the 50th year of Rocky Grass sold out here, and a bunch of people who are excited at this and need this new camping. And so they're kind of anxiously waiting. And so that's what's looking over our shoulder and what we're trying to make sure that we can provide for them. So I appreciate you all trying to maintain these timelines with us and helping us work through this. So as we've been told and we've been discussing tonight, we're trying to just talk about the annexation agreement and the changes that we're proposing to it. And I'll do my best to really focus on this. However, as we've continuously discussed, all of these issues really touch across all the documents and both properties. So inevitably, I think items are going to be brought up that span across multiple documents. And it is notable that the actual changes to the annexation agreement that we're seeking are very, very limited. But before I get into really what those changes are, I do want to take a little step back and take a look at why. And this why, I think, is best answered by looking into the past. So 50 years in the past, actually, and that's when the very first Rocky Grass, known as the Colorado Rocky Mountain Bluegrass Festival, was held. And this was the beginning of what I would say is something pretty darn magical. And I think that the unsuspecting town of Lyons had no idea just how special it was going to be until it first moved here in 1992. And jump forward 30 years later, and here we are getting ready to celebrate the 50th anniversary and spending 30 years in Lyons. So I wanted to bring up that milestone because I think it's pretty exciting and pretty cool. And it's, while there's a lot of moving parts to this, it's a unique opportunity to get to work through these and make these updates on our golden year of this premier event. So, and as with most things in life, I think you learn a lot every time you hold a music festival. And I can say that for myself and for every one of us here at Planet. And I'm excited to say that we still learn every year. And we see where the festivarian experience can be improved, where efficiencies can be capitalized on, and impacts can be reduced. And we've learned a lot across the 50-year existence of our events, the 30 years we've been in Lyons, the 23 years since our original zoning was approved, and in the 5 years since the farm was annexed. We've also learned a lot through the flood and through working through this global pandemic. So we've done a lot of learning, and we're excited now to be able to turn that learning into some changes. And so some of those changes could be easily done for the next event, but some of them do require us to update these zoning documents. And so what we've tried to take is a culmination of all of these changes and incorporate them into these updates, which do affect the annexation agreement. And that should guide us through the next 5 or 10 years here as we lay the groundwork for the next 50 years of Rocky Grass and everything else on Planet Bluegrass. So that's kind of the why. That's the why we're here and the why this is a cool opportunity for us. And coming back to the annexation agreement, the changes we're seeking are really minor. And I think they really speak to the music-filled future that we want to see here at Planet Bluegrass. And so one thing we learned this year is that hosting more music at Planet Bluegrass is pretty darn awesome. We learned that 29 shows in the span of a month is a lot for our small team to handle while trying to plan for Telluride in the pandemic, but it was pretty awesome. And we learned in September that single night concerts on the planet can be just as special as our festivals. And so I think it's fair to say that our appetites have been wedded to the possibilities of what really can be done and thinking to the future. And so that's why we're here today requesting these changes. And so the biggest changes to the annexation agreement will be ones that will allow us to bring fun new music to town that might not fit inside the genre or the timelines of our festivals. And so to do this, we're requesting an update to our mid-tier events. And you may remember that these mid-tier events were created in the agreement in 2021. And originally, a mid-tier event was created to allow for 10 event days with up to 1,000 people utilizing the ranch property only. And so in order to bring the level of artists that we want to bring for these types of events in a way that's sustainable for us as a company, we would like to increase this capacity from 1,000 to 3,000 for mid-tier events, as well as be able to utilize the farm for parking and camping. So real quick, what do these events look like? Most commonly, they're going to be single night concerts, similar to what we did in September with the Punch Brothers or Phil Lesh and Friends. Music begins 4 or 5 p.m., and then everyone vacates the grounds and the parking lots at the end of the night. So they're lower impacts, kind of quick hit one night events. And we found this to be a really great model. It's not only a cool experience for the attendees, but we believe it's relatively low impact on the town, and it's viable in a business sense for us. So we think this mid-tier event model can actually be extra beneficial to the town and its businesses too, because of the later start times. So without music all day, we can see many of our attendees looking forward to arriving early in Lyons to grab food or drinks or explore. And I see opportunities to work with local businesses to take extra advantage of this. So we see this as being a pretty beneficial undertaking across the board. So that's the reason that we're just adding the word mid-tier events as part of the event types that are allowed in the annexation agreement. So that's kind of the background for that. And then I will also note that we are requesting that camping be allowed in conjunction with these events. However, we don't have plans for camping in conjunction with these type of events at this time. But we have learned that it's you never know when a beautiful 2-night run of music is going to fall in your lap, and being ready with the ability to have camping for something like this is important. But I think it's also important to note that we are not requesting camping in the south grazing area to be permitted for this. That would be only for major events. And I know that probably is going to make less sense now that I'm realizing that you probably haven't seen every piece of the PCDC hearing, but that's a pretty important distinction that we want to make clear is we're not requesting any use in the south grazing area for mid-tier events. So then the other two small changes that we're seeking to the annexation agreement are based on conditions of our PCDC approval that you can see in the packet. So the first is striking through the originally requested change that it had created a carve out for public access to this south grazing area property from Apple Valley Road. And the goal of that carve out was to allow for access for some year-round yurts that we were going to place on that property. And I was able to have some really good discussions about these changes with our neighbors in Apple Valley. And as a result of those discussions, we ended up removing the yurts and the bathhouse from our application at the PCDC hearing. We kind of recognized this was a divergence from our traditional course of business, and we were creating this potential for public access from Apple Valley Road, which was a big issue for our neighbors up there. And we wanted to be good neighbors. So I was very happy to have those discussions with them, and I appreciated the constructive manner they occurred in. And so we were totally understanding and willing to remove those two items. So you'll see that as one of the conditions of the PCDC approval, and that is why that is now struck out as no longer an item to the annexation agreement. I should probably also clarify at this time a little bit more detail about our request for camping on the south grazing area, because it could be construed that may be affecting public access. And I would like to make it sure it's clear that our camping would not allow public access from Apple Valley Road. And so we wouldn't be trying to change the annexation agreement to allow for that. As Rosie mentioned, we're no longer able to use Riverbend for camping. And so we're looking for a new home for these 600 campers who would normally be over there. And the south grazing area, which is the area between Apple Valley Road and the river, is perfect for us to move these campers to. And we are very confident that we can do it with little to no impact on Apple Valley Road or our neighbors. And so we've committed to a series of restrictions to use this area. And the most notable one is no vehicle or pedestrian access will be allowed from Apple Valley Road. So other than the occasional service vehicle, there'll be no access from Apple Valley Road. So the result of that would be no change in the annexation agreement regarding access from Apple Valley Road. So all of that was to say that we're not, there is no change related to access by the public from Apple Valley Road for anything that we're requesting in this conditional use review. And then finally, as suggested by staff and finally conditioned by the PCDC, we're updating the access restrictions to be tied more to our CDOT access permits with just a top end limit of 29 total event days per year. The property access restrictions were noted in lots of different places throughout the zoning documents. And I felt like that was confusing and it allowed for the risk of mismatched information and things like that. So Philip actually helped to facilitate a meeting with CDOT that was extremely helpful for all parties involved. And we were all in agreement that it makes the most sense to tie our access restrictions to CDOT, which is the governing body that has the most knowledge and basis to control that. And the only thing that would need to be stated in the zoning is the 29-day limit as kind of the enforcement that we don't exceed what CDOT would allow. So that's the other clarification you'll notice in the access section. And that's why we decided to go that way. So that really sums up all the changes to the annexation agreement. Like I mentioned, there's not many changes there. It's just kind of the little pieces of wording that affect the other things that we're looking to change. So I know that was it's a little maybe hard when you can't see the entire picture. So if we can answer any questions or clarify anything, I'm happy to do that now.
Council, let me just ask you one thing. Were there comments made by Mr. Tucker that we can't discuss?
No, I think Mr. Tucker's comments were just giving you an overview of the application and then why certain things were in or not in the annexation agreement amendment. So
okay,
anything that Mr. Tucker said is fair game.
Okay, fine. So my first question is, I don't consider raising the attendance at mid-tier events from 1,000 to 3,000 minor. I can tell you from past experience that when the original agreement was done with Planet Bluegrass, I think a major event was limited to 3,000 people. I understand times change. And then we're talking about 600 campers. Is that correct?
So we're requesting the ability, we did like a Google Maps square footage comparison of the space at in this south grazing area to other spaces that we use for camping. And based on that square footage comparison, we believe that 1,000 campers can fit there. So that is the requested number, just because we wanted it to be based in a logical number like that. But at this point, we're only trying to move these 600 campers.
What is the definition of a service vehicle that would have access from Apple Valley Road?
Absolutely. So that would be like a porta potty service truck or a truck coming to pick up a dumpster or one of our Planet Bluegrass vehicles going in there to answer a question or pick up staff or something like that.
And is that why you're requesting a bridge so that those service vehicles could have access?
So the service vehicles would most likely always access from Apple Valley Road. The bridge is a mix of requests. It's more for year-round use so that we can easily move between properties. And a lot of the intent there is for like our maintenance vehicles, to be able to, if you're doing a trash run, you can jump across the bridge, grab trash from this campground, jump across the bridge to the main farm property, grab it from the parking lot and head back down to the property. So that's more the intent. The bridge would not be allowing public vehicles across the river or anything like that.
No, I understand that, but is there access now from Apple Valley Road sufficient for service vehicles to enter the farm?
Yes, there is. And I think I would note, and I think Attorney Dittman might have been trying to hit on this as well, that the changes that we're requesting in the annexation agreement are not related to the size of the mid-tier events. It's simply whether mid-tier events can be incorporated into use at the farm in terms of what's being considered tonight.
Okay. I have no further questions. Are there any other further questions for the applicants? Trustee Rogan?
Thanks, Mayor. Nice to see you, Zach. I have a couple of questions. So the 29 event days, do those event days include mid-tier events?
Yes, they include mid-tier events, and they would also include the like the 24 hours before and after events where there's high impacts. And that was an important thing and a great discussion, part of the discussion we had with CDOT. And so like the school lineups would be included in that as well. So any high impact day like that would be part of that.
Okay, great. And then you talked about staff housing on the farm. How much staff housing are you talking about? Like how many people would be able to stay there?
Can I answer this or?
Trustee Rogan, I think that's a question better we should have during the site plan and conceptual plan.
Okay,
amendments.
that's okay.
I'm sorry, I realize it's tough to keep them all straight given how closely related they all are.
Can I ask a question about the permanent bridge?
To the extent it relates to vehicle access or anything in the annexation agreement.
Okay, I'll ask the question, Attorney Dittman, and then you just cut me off if it, in your opinion, doesn't. Did you work with CDOT yet about putting a permanent vehicle bridge over the highway?
I should clarify that this would be not over the highway, over the river.
Okay.
Does that
Okay.
change your question?
Yep.
Okay.
I rescind my question. That's all I have. Thank you.
Further questions? I have a couple more. Just because I think it's important to get as much information at first reading as possible. There were two issues concerning the river. One of them was abiding, and I think it was in the annexation agreement. Correct me if I'm wrong, Counselor. One of them was complying with the Boulder County restoration, and the other one was entering into agreements and support of the Same Frame River Coalition. Have those been addressed?
And those are in section 11 of the annexation agreement.
Yes, have those been addressed?
So I believe that we are everything that we've needed to do in terms of the reclamation and all that is complete. Section 11. What was the other piece of that? I apologize.
The Same Frame, I believe it was the Same Frame
The St. Vrain Creek Coalition.
Coalition, exactly. And support of it.
I believe we do. I'm not prepared to speak on that at the moment.
Okay.
I would need to review that.
Could you please have that answer for us at second reading?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any further questions of the applicant? If there are none, I'll entertain a motion. Mayor Pro Tem.
I move that we approve ordinance 1118 on relating to Planet Bluegrass on first reading. And that,
Second that. Sorry.
I move that we approve
Go ahead,
ordinance
sir.
1118 on first reading. And that we set the hearing on the second reading and the public hearing on February 23rd at 7 p.m.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second as stated by the Mayor Pro Tem. Mayor Pro Tem?
My comments on that are basically following up on some prior comments that others have made. As we've indicated, the Board of Trustees has not yet seen a substantial number of documents, and very importantly, has not even seen any of the public comments on this matter yet. We haven't seen the minutes of the PCDC meeting that presumably will provide some guidance on why the PCDC made the recommendations that it did. Even if we get those tomorrow, on Thursday, the following day, we anticipate getting a packet that will include extensive documentation on a huge project proposed for downtown Lyons, the new hotel, which for the benefit of both the Planet Bluegrass representatives and any members of the public, this board also has not seen, because that itself is a quasi-judicial matter. And so we're asking the Board of Trustees in the span of roughly a week to digest huge volumes of documents on both of those matters at the same time, essentially. And not just the board, the public needs time to study things like this, in my opinion. And I think that the proposed timetable is just too short. It's asking too many people, the board, the staff, the public, to do too many things in too short a time. And from experience, that's when mistakes get made and things get overlooked. It's happened before with this Board of Trustees. I don't mean this term, but I mean the Lyons Board of Trustees in the past has approved some agreements on very short notice with little public input, where the public didn't even see the final version of the agreement until before it was approved. And there was one notable instance where the board didn't even see a final complicated agreement until the afternoon of the day that they approved it. That's when mistakes happen. And I think we need to be careful, take our time, try to do things right and thorough. And in response to what Ms. Dennett said, this is no punishment of Planet Bluegrass. Planet Bluegrass isn't responsible for the timetable, for example, with regard to the hotel, and it's not responsible for the procedures that had to be implemented for the quasi-judicial nature of our review. That's just something that we all have to adapt to. And it's very, very difficult being an elected official and not knowing as much about the things that you are about to have to make important decisions on as the general public does. That's a tough position to be in. And most of us have gotten emails, and people have come up to me on the street or in casual meetings. They're anxious to discuss this kind of thing. We have to tell them all, I can't talk about it with you. If you have something to submit, please put it into the public record, submit it to the town clerk, and we'll see it. But we haven't seen any of those yet. And what the public has to say about this is important. And I expect the public's going to have a lot to say about this. So I believe we need to take our time. And the 23rd, I picked that because it does allows for the a town attorney to return. It allows enough time to republish the notice. And I know that's a small expense, but given the magnitude of what we're dealing with, I think it's a relatively trivial expense. I know that the Parks and Recreation Commission has had to reset their regular meeting to the 23rd because of absences and things, but I think any night would produce a conflict. The following night, the 24th, is tentatively set for our monthly Urban Renewal Authority meeting. So that one's not really available if that meeting goes forward. So that's my suggestion, is let's take it at least a couple more weeks, which is not a huge amount of time, and look at this more thoroughly. And I picked the 7 p.m. time because that's something else that has bothered me about recent processes and special meetings. Is I don't like 5 o'clock meetings, 6 o'clock meetings. Those are the times of day when it's good weather, there's kids' activities going on, or people are commuting home from work, or 6 o'clock or 6:30. It's during people's dinner hours. There's a reason that we normally have our regular board meetings at 7 o'clock, because people are able to get home, do dinner, do the kid stuff. And if somebody's interested in, there are a lot of people interested in this, that lets them attend at a time that's convenient to them. So I think it's important to set this at a reasonable, not just day, but hour for the public to participate if they wish to. And so that's the reason for my motion.
Are there any further comments? Administrator
Just, I do want to note, it will be a similar situation packet-wise is what you're facing now. Your Board of Trustees, because of the holiday on Monday, you will have a Board of Trustees meeting on Tuesday, this meeting Wednesday, and urban renewal on Thursday, all of the same week. Just FYI.
If any trustee thinks that we should push it out further, like the first week of March, I'm fine with that. I was just trying to come up with what the minimum postponement time would be. I'd be fine with pushing it to the next week. If anybody would like to amend my motion, I'd be glad to support that. I was trying to thread the needle between the desire to, understandably, the applicant to move rapidly, the scheduling things we've talked about, and there's probably no good time. But I think March, the first week of March, our meeting in early March, it isn't until like the 6th or maybe the 7th of March. So the first week of March is available if anybody would prefer that. So I would, if they would, I would be most amenable to an amendment to change that date to the first week of March.
Trustee Rogan.
I have a question about the packet, Administrator Simonson. So if indeed the packet for second reading is ready to go out tomorrow, and we postpone it and postpone the meeting as Mayor Pro Tem suggested, would the packet still go out tomorrow so we would have all of that time to digest it?
It can go out tomorrow still, I believe. Is that correct?
Yep.
Oh, Philip.
So long as it can be noticed, we can confirm that it can be noticed for that day, which it should, I would think. But go ahead, Phil.
Just a minor comment. There was some direction from PCDC for staff to address a couple items that I need to still, would be included in the staff report that wouldn't be ready, but the bulk of the materials would be included.
So it sounds like, yes, we could get out the majority of the packet in the next day.
Instead of everybody talking, please be recognized.
Sorry.
Please be recognized. Trustee Waugh.
I think we owe it to this applicant to do this as soon as possible. And I guess my concern is why one person's vacation can hold this up for 2 weeks. Is there no other way or no other legal counsel that can provide the support for this matter? I mean, we're basically, because Brandon, and he's entitled to vacation. He works very hard for us, but at the same time, this just seems, this seems like a flaw in the system that one person can hold up this process.
I don't know how to answer that, to be honest with you, Counselor.
Yeah, I mean, certainly other legal counsel could be there. I mean, they don't have the background on these issues that I do. I mean, but if it's the board's desire and we can have, I mean, I can check with Mr. Godak or someone else so they can be present for another time.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Under some circumstances, I'd be sympathetic to that of trying to have another attorney do it. But in this particular matter, there are at least 7 comprehensive, complex contracts that are involved. And Attorney Dittman has had a lot of prior experience with this. I mean, him individually, because we went through the whole negotiated agreement, whenever that was, early May or June, I believe it was. And so I really think another attorney from the firm would be really at a disadvantage, and they'd either have to pay them a lot of money to get up to speed. We really need Attorney Dittman present for this, because there are a lot of potential legal issues.
Administrator Simonson.
I agree. You have a motion and a second, I believe, on the table about postponing, but it is scheduled for the 9th if the majority of you feel like you can get through the materials before then. So, or the 10th, we could open it and reclose it if you need one more day. But I agree. I think Attorney Dittman needs to be involved with this. And, but it's up to the board if you feel like you can be prepared by the 9th or you want to wait until he returns.
Yeah, I can do the 10th as well, but that'd be the last day. I could not do the 11th.
Okay. We do have a motion and a second. Are there any further comments? Trustee Wah.
Just like to state that I'm going to vote against the current amendment or the current
Motion. You're frozen, Trustee Wah.
and I think we owe it to the applicant. This is for this season. There are lots of people that are planning to come to this event, and they need.
Froze again. What happened? Trustee Wah is now off the screen.
I think we lost him.
I think he fell off, yeah.
Can you contact him, Clerk Vasquez, please, and tell him?
Join, even if it could be by telephone, maybe?
We have all 7 board members present. I want all 7 board members able to vote on this. There's
Right.
Trustee Wah. Trustee Wah, could you finish your comment? Because you froze and then you went off.
I had internet access issues. I'm going to vote against the current motion as stated because I would like to have hold this meeting on February 10th. I think we owe it to the applicant. There are hundreds of people coming to this event that need to know where they're going to stay and how they're going to stay for this year's festival.
Trustee Miller?
I'm gonna have to agree with that. I'm gonna vote no on this too. I think we should, I feel like we'll have enough time to get through the material in a week to make a decision.
Further comments? No further comments? I'll call for the vote.
Mayor Angelo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning,
Aye.
Trustee Lowell,
Aye.
Trustee Caravas,
Aye.
Trustee Wah,
No.
Trustee Miller,
No,
Logan.
Aye.
The motion carries. We will delay until the 23rd. And I assumed by the comments that were made that the meeting will be at 7 o'clock. Is that correct? Attorney Dibman.
And just for the record, to be clear, this was approved on first reading. And so we'll continue to a second reading on the 23rd.
Okay. So in other words, the second reading will be on the 23rd, sir. Is that correct?
That's correct, along with, and because of the process issues we spoke of, that also mean that the conditional use for the site plan keynotes will also be on the 23rd, as well as the resolution amending the ALUs.
And we are still under your guidance of it being quasi-judicial until the 23rd, sir.
Absolutely, there should be no ex parte communications concerning these items until that time.
So, thank you very much. So a summary of action items.
All I have, sir, is to notice the second reading for ordinance 1118 to be held on February 23rd at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Anything else?
To distribute the materials
tomorrow.
ASAP.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Except for
Mayor Pro
Philip's
Tem?
extra comments.
Mayor Pro Tem?
A couple of related action items that I would suggest on this. If staff could please do at least one, if not more, email blasts informing the public of the change of dates. And at the same time, as I think was done recently on the hotel project, if they could inform the public about, it's hard to explain what quasi-judicial process is to the public, but basically to inform the public that the best way to be heard on this is to submit your comments if you wish to be heard in advance. Actually, the best way to be heard is to show up and speak at the meeting. And that probably the next best way is to submit in advance your comments by email to the town clerk for inclusion in the record, rather than trying to individually email or phone call or talk in person with trustees. If that kind of public advice could go out, I think that would be helpful and try to clarify things. And then secondly, an action item, if the staff could please update the town calendar on the website. That calendar, it didn't include today's meeting. It didn't include the meeting on the 9th. If we're going to have a town calendar online, it needs to be accurate, because people look at it and it's actually worse to have it there and have things missing than to not get it also. And I know that may not be part of the official notice, but if we could please update the calendar. Thank you.
Counselor?
Yeah, the Mayor Pro Tem's first point on quasi-judicial procedure and informing the public, I think it may be helpful to link the recently enacted quasi-judicial policy as part of that, which explains in greater detail as to how to make yourself heard during these types of matters.
And my final comment is this is in no way a negative to be taken in a negative connotation at all. This is strictly, I think, to the trustees that voted to delay it, simply a matter of being able to assimilate so much information. And I hope that you can appreciate that. If there's no further comment by anybody, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Well, seeing none, I'll call for the vote.
Mayor Angelo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Browning,
Aye.
Trustee Lowell, Trustee Carabas,
Aye.
Trustee Waugh,
Aye.
Trustee Rogan,
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Yay.
Be safe, everybody. Good night.
Night, everybody.